Welcome to Fathers University, where we educate men in fatherhood, finance, and fitness. I'm your host, Emerson Morris, and today we're excited about this special guest that we have. Today we're joined by Acton Academy President Jake Thompson, a school that challenges traditional model of education and empowering students to become lifelong learners, problem solvers, and leaders. Whether you're a dad within the public school system, private school, homeschooling, you're simply exploring options, and today's conversation will give you a fresh perspective, helping your child discover their purpose. Hey, Jake, how you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. Very
Man,
much
it's an
appreciate
honor.
it. Excited to be on.
It's an honor, man. First, I want to say congratulations. I saw you on TED Talk, man, and I was like, oh my goodness. I said, he's a celebrity.
Oh
And
no, man.
I know you're not. I
I
enjoyed it.
accidentally I accidentally find myself in some interesting places every once in a while, but anyways.
Yeah, you did a great job, man. You did a great job. But first, personally, I want to thank you again for being on here, all that you do. I know we had a conversation before we started, but just tell us a little bit about yourself and you're not just the president, but also just let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I actually never expected I'd be doing what I'm doing. And I mean, president is probably a very official label. I don't even sure I'd give myself that label, but I'm really just a ordinary parent, ordinary dad. I love my children, and that has just led me on an interesting journey. My, your podcast is related to several father-oriented things. So I'll start my story a little bit differently than maybe I normally would share it, but it was probably 11, 12 years ago now, where I was we were ordinary parents, young family, had two children, and I was in actually financial services, and I had been doing well in my kind of this niche that I had found. I actually had written a book that had done really well, and business was going great, but I found myself really unsatisfied
What's the
with
name
the
of the
work
book?
I was doing. The book is called Money, Wealth, Life Insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote it just out of a need to help my clients at the time better understand some of the, I guess, the financial tools that we were using. Life insurance can be kind of a uh, Swiss Army knife
Right.
of financial tools, and so
Right.
a lot of times you have different applications for different things, and with wealth, you use it for lots of different purposes. And so I wrote this out of just this necessity, but ended up doing really well. And um, anyways, but at the time, I just found myself really unsatisfied with the work I was doing. I felt like I was intended to do more. And so I had stumbled into uh, this little school in Austin, Texas, that was really competitive, really difficult to get in, called the Acton School of Business.
Now, at this time, how many kids did you have when you?
I've got two kids. I got two children. I've got my oldest at the time is like 4 years old. And so
Uh,
I'm not even in the
right.
school world yet. You know what I mean? And anyway, Acton is, I go down there, I get in by probably some clerical error or by the skin of my teeth. And it's this really rigorous, competitive MBA, but it's geared towards entrepreneurship.
Mm,
And I love it. But I have this really transformational experience. And it's the first time in my life that I feel like I'm learning in a way that actually is. Um, I felt like the learning I did at Acton I felt like everything that we did was going to matter in some way for the rest of my life. It
wow.
felt like Acton had cut out all of the stuff that felt like a waste of time,
Hmm.
all of the kind of the more traditional form of
Right.
learning that I'd grown up with.
Right.
And we were challenged I mean, we sat in Socratic discussions where it's kind of like a Harvard business type
Right.
of model. And we sat in discussions where we deliberated we stand in the shoes of someone who has to make a really
Mm,
difficult decision, and we just hash out what we would do. We disagree, we'd agree, we'd sort of really hone our ability to think. And I just absolutely loved it. It gave me so much energy, and it was so fun. And I felt like I don't know, there was some unlocks,
right.
right? Like I don't know how you feel, but
Right.
for so long, I was nervous about. I mean,
Yeah.
you're entrepreneurial,
Right.
obviously, have a background in many. As we
Right.
talked about,
Right.
you do all sorts of things,
Right.
so you know more than I. That's just it's. There was something about growing up in more of the. I had developed a mindset of kind
Mhm.
of right, wrong,
Right.
have the right answer, don't have the answer. That kind of stifled my
Mhm.
confidence in going out and doing something. I
Right.
like it kind of made me nervous that I wasn't going to be I wasn't going to do it right. How can I lead an organization of
Right. Yeah.
10, 15, 30, 50 people? Like how who am I to do that? I don't know how to do that yet. I had to go learn how to do it. And
Right.
Acton helped me understand really that there were, as we went through these discussions, and I began to recognize that questions and thinking
Mm.
and reasoning was far more important than feeling like I had the right answer, and that all of the other people
Right.
out there leading in any way or doing anything worthwhile in the world didn't know what they were doing before they stepped in. It was a matter of courage,
Mhm.
of willingness to try, of feeling like the need to solve an important problem was more important than the need to even succeed. In other words, it was worth stepping into something and failing if necessary because it
Mm.
was important enough. And
Is there anything in school growing up that you struggled with, like academically?
I actually did really good
Okay.
academically.
Okay.
And it's interesting. I'm not sure having now, we'll talk more about Acton as we go, but Acton is such a unique model because it really drives the responsibility down to the individual. And it
Mm.
really is, it frees a young person to make decisions, to fail, to experience. And I've thought a lot about it. I'm not sure if in lots of ways, those who the traditional model doesn't serve well, almost like so sometimes I worry that people like me who did
Mhm.
really well actually develop sometimes a worse
Mm.
mindset as a
Gotcha.
result, right?
Gotcha.
And I got to be careful too because
Right.
it's big organizations, big government
Yeah. Right.
organizations, especially, are just very, very slow to change.
Mm.
And the model is really, I mean, for anybody in the 21st century with AI and tech,
Right.
like we
Right.
feel like it's
Correct.
antiquated. But there's so many great. The challenge is you have so many great people inside of this system that are doing so much good, and so it's we just we've just anyways. I'm getting a little bit ahead
No, no,
of
you're good.
myself.
You're good.
You asked the question of my own experience, and
Right.
yeah, I mean, I did well in school, but I just never felt like it prepared me for life.
Wow. It's
You know what
powerful.
I mean?
Yeah.
And now I look at today, gosh, that's what that's more than 20 years ago at this point
Same
for
here.
me. I hate to say it, right?
Yeah.
The grays are
Now,
obvious.
how old are you, Jake?
I'm 40,
Man,
so
you made me feel old. I'm 47, man.
oh, you're in your 40s still. Well,
Man,
once
you
you're in your
yeah,
40s,
I'm
you
7 years ahead, but it's
do.
I thought okay, yeah, that's awesome, brother.
I mean, what
Um,
was your experience like? I mean, how did
man.
you feel like you were prepared leaving high
Great,
school?
great, great
Or,
question, man. I struggle in reading. And so growing up, so funny, I laugh about it now. In elementary, I was in the chapter one class, so I thought that was like number one class. But at that
the
time,
beginning class.
they labeled as
Oh
struggle
man.
learners. So, um, and when the teacher talk about a little bit on the podcast, when the teacher asked me to read, I would have the book over my eyes, the popcorn reading, and I would have sweat coming down my forehead like I ran a 5K. I was just that nervous. And so all my life growing up, played sports, right? Background from Miami, Florida, little league fathers or men. You'll see more men at the parks versus coming to the school supporting their kids, right? And I had a great dad. He didn't know anything about sports. He was a drag racer, racing cars, so he wasn't into the sports thing. He threw one football to me, and that football was like a duck. It wasn't even a sparrow. It was just all right, Dad. We're good. You're good. This is not what you're called to do. But he was a great man, and he passed in 2020. But to answer your question, for me, all my life I thought I was just It's like that golden ticket, just sports guy, NFL, and raised in church. And my mom and I just had this myth of I go to the NFL and I got a full scholarship. I was in college or high school. I'm all American. Went to University of South Florida. Pretty decent athlete there. In my last year, I break my leg. Right. So I don't know if you remember, but back then they had something called Prop 48. And a Prop 48 was more coming out of high school where you could not pass your test to get into college, but you had to maintain your GPA. And that third year, you had to graduate in order to get another year back. So that I was that guy, right? So here you have this narrative, this myth I'm believing that, hey, struggle reader, struggle learner, fear taking tests. And then I break my leg in college, tibia bone, the fibula, have a rod in my leg. At that time, I got a relationship with Christ, found a home church, things of that nature. But as I was keep continuing to grow, now I'm forced facing my giant of illiteracy, or forced facing my giant of academics. And I had to take 18 hours in the spring, 21 hours in summer while rehabbing my leg in college. Now to this day, it had to be God, man, because I literally shook my advisor's hand and say, thank you for all that you have done in my life. But I'm emotionally burnt. I'm checked out. But I graduated, right, with a criminology degree. And I just did that, not even thinking why I should do it. Went to Atlanta Falcons, tried out for a little bit. It didn't work out, came back. Instead of going to Miami, I said, let me stay in Tampa. And I found myself teaching in the school system. Not because I just love the kids. I just did it because I wanted to check, right? And this was in 2002. Yeah, 2002. And so I starting there and teaching, and I realized there's a lot of kids that have a lot of young men had a lot of anger, a lot of anger, a lot of not having fathers in the home, not being present. And so me being young, playing sports, right? I didn't feel intimidated by the kids, but then at the same time, I realized I started to love what I do. I started to pour into them. So to answer your question for me, I found myself not passing my teacher certification. That goes back to academics again, education, right? So I'm taking all these tests, paying all these fees. That's a that's a whole system within itself. Um, but one of the things I found out, Jake, I found myself facing my giant, and my giant was fear of taking tests. And it wasn't that I dealt with illiteracy all these years, man. I just basically didn't have interest in reading. I could read the whole time. It's nothing interests me. So then I found myself writing my first book in 2014 called Daddy's Milk. Um, and that's a crazy topic because I was working at FedEx at night, assistant teacher during the day because I couldn't pass my test in 2008 when my daughter was born. And my wife, I come home, my shirt is wet from FedEx, and I had to get up in the morning to go in the success lab at this high school. And my wife is in the rocking chair breastfeeding our daughter. And internally I said, you know what, I see why men check out. Men are they're physically, they're emotionally, but I see why men feel rejected because my wife is breastfeeding our daughter. And me, first time dad, I felt rejected. And I said out of my mouth externally, not thinking my wife was up, and I said, I'm gonna write a book for fathers. And she's head going back, she's in the rocking chair, I'm thinking she's asleep. She said, you should name it Daddy's Milk, and went right back to sleep. True story. And I went back into that lab in high school and I couldn't type, but the key thing, I had time. And I said, Daddy's Milk. And I started studying the process between the mom, the bond between the mother and the baby. That's a strong bond. And then God began to download just insight and revelation. He said, if it wasn't for the father's seed, the mom's breast would never be filled with milk. Everything starts with the seed. Everything, DNA, touch, pain, generation, wealth, insight, daddy's milk. So that's a snippet, man.
I love that. So at Acton, we believe that every child is a genius who
Mm,
deserves to find a calling that will change the world.
wow.
And I love your story because you're evidence of what we believe
Thank you.
and actually exactly what we're trying to solve. For you, I just imagine you as a young boy and all the people who are
Yeah.
listening,
Yeah.
several who felt this, several who have children who are in this situation right now, who are losing a sense of self-worth
Yes.
because the way they're being measured or the things they're being asked to do are just either not interesting, or they're just a little bit out of reach right now, or they're just, I mean, forced. I make the joke,
Yeah.
To Kill a Mockingbird is probably one of the best books in the world. But because I was forced to read it, I got nothing useful out of it, you know? And so what we want to do at Acton is set these young people free to, we want them to, I mean, almost more than anything, to have a sense of belief in themselves that they are capable. You said it yourself. It wasn't that you couldn't read. Reading is a low level skill.
That's
A
true.
100% of people can learn to read. That's not difficult.
That's true.
Now, if you put it at a timeline and you say by age 6, you should be at this spot and this spot and this
Mhm.
spot and this spot, you're going to put ancillary pressure. You're going to force me to do something I may hate to do. And you're not going to give me a chance to develop the ultimate goal, which is a love for reading,
Mhm.
right? And if we just look a little bit ahead and say our goal is to love reading because reading can change your life, then that's an entirely different approach, right? My son would have been exactly in your shoes
Right.
had he not been in a place where he could learn at his own pace, where it was about developing a mindset of doing hard things and pushing through. And it didn't matter that he wasn't reading when he was 8. And then one night he comes down into my room. It's late. Dad, I just can't sleep. Oh,
Mm.
what's going on, buddy? He says, I just can't stop reading my book. And it's
Wow.
like, oh man, we would have, had we
Wow.
pushed reading on him like happened to you and
Right.
80% of other children who
Mhm.
have an aversion to reading, he would have lost that love of reading. Now, on the flip side, I have a 5-year-old who well, 6 now, but who can read. And it's like it just comes at, I mean, it's no different than when someone learns to talk or
Right.
walk. Like we're just come at different schedules, man.
Yeah.
And so it's just heartbreaking to hear of. And I know this is what so many young people feel. And then they get to 18 and they believe something about themselves that is absolutely not true.
That's true.
And they is I meet with a lot of parents. So I mean, let me back up
Yeah.
just for half a second. So I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm having this amazing experience, right? And I get introduced to this little school that one of my teachers, Jeff Sandifer, and his wife Laura have started called Acton Academy. And
Mm.
it's basically the things that we're trying to learn in our late 20s, early 30s about, Acton invites us to find a calling, right? It's like,
Mhm.
how can we use our God-given gifts in a way that serves other people and brings us joy? And
Mm.
we call that finding a calling. And I'm 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 enthralled. I mean, I'm having this life-changing experience trying to discover
Right.
what are my gifts? What am
Mhm.
I, what's like a deep need in the world that I feel like I can contribute to, right? And it's so I'm watching as Jeff and Laura are building this amazing organization. And so I end up, I mean, the short of it is I come back home to Boise, Idaho. My daughter's now school age. We start her in a traditional school, and we just feel like, once you see what it looks like for young people to take responsibility for their learning, to have real projects that matter in the real world, where you're not testing them and trying
Mhm.
to like time test their reading comprehension at 5 years
Right.
old. Once you see what it looks like to really create like a healthy place for young people to learn and love going to school and do hard things and all of the beautiful things that we've, I guess, learned as a result of years of experiments at Acton, it's really hard to unsee that.
Mm.
And so we knew if we were going to give our children like the best, it's not even like school. It's that we felt like we could prepare them for the moment that they leave our home and go out and have to deal with the really difficult challenges of life. We wanted them to be prepared for that. And so we started our own Acton Academy here in Boise, Idaho. And fast forward now, I mean, 10 years, and Jeff and Laura have a few years ago asked me to take on leadership of the Acton Network. We have 25,000 parent entrepreneurs who have started initial auditions to open a campus in their
Wow.
community. I mean,
That's
it has
awesome.
been like an amazing growth trajectory for Acton, because I think it hits on these fundamental things that parents are agree with. It speaks to something deeper. And we now have open and active 300 campuses in 30 countries. But
Wow.
why I say that is contextually, I have met with many parents over the years. And one question that I ask them every time that I sit with a family that's potentially interested in Acton Academy for their children is I ask them, what do you want for your children at 18?
Mm,
And I think one of the core, I think Acton attempts to solve ambitiously two real problems. The first is I would argue that we are preparing our children we're setting them up for failure when they leave our homes, to leave with low confidence, to
right.
not have a sense of self. What are your unique intrinsic gifts? To not have had thought through those things or developed a sense of that individual is a real mistake.
Hmm.
Hard to do. We can talk more about what learning at Acton actually looks like. Um, but I sit down with a lot of these families, and there are three things that I think are a pattern of what parents want when their children are 18. I should back up. The second ambitious thing is we really are aiming at preparing them to get to the end of their lives and to be able to answer what we believe are life's biggest questions, which are, was I a good person?
Hmm.
Did I contribute something meaningful? And who did I love and who loved me?
Mm,
And so everything we do looks far less like, did you get grades to get into a good college to get a job that you
right.
can make a bunch of money at? Or can you be a millionaire, famous,
Right.
ultra successful? Or for us, it's did you live a meaningful, intentional life that you are grateful for when you get to the end? We're named after Lord Acton, and um, one of my favorite quotes of his is to look back on life with satisfaction is to live twice.
Mm,
And so I'm a little bit deviated. I want to get back to what but those all
mhm.
help contextually
Right. Right.
understand why I'm sitting with a family and having a discussion. But the pattern that I see is parents want when their children are 18 and when they're going out to take on the challenges there's so many distractions in life, and there's so many challenges ahead. What are the things that you want most as a parent? And it's inevitably typically three things that this category I'd say most comments categorize into. The first is they want their children to be able to think for themselves. The world is battling for the minds of every individual,
Yes.
I would say. And they want their children to be able to think for themselves because we say clear thinking leads to good decisions. Good decisions lead to good habits. Good habits forge character,
Mm,
and character determines destiny. So
right.
they want that clear that ability to think for themselves. The second thing that they want is for their children to be good people.
Hmm.
They want them to have a sense of a moral compass. Most great parents aren't trying to make sure that it's their own moral compass. They just want it to be a thoughtful, intentional moral compass that they can hone over time and make decisions for themselves rather than living a life making decisions for other people, friends. And so the ability to think for yourself, being a good person, and to be able to do something you love.
That's good.
Um, and so everything we do at Acton really revolves around preparing children to really to answer those three questions, um, which becomes like a whole another set of us when we think about learning. That's what we're looking for. And so when I think of thinking back to you just for a second, gosh,
Yeah.
uh, such a competent person, and the last thing we would ever want is for a learner to feel incompetent,
Right.
because they just learned a little bit differently, or even worse, they just were bored as heck by
That's true.
the way that it was delivered.
That's true.
So
That's true. No, that's powerful, man. And it's we was talking before we got online here. Like I said before, my mom taught 33 years in the Miami-Dade public school system. She passed in 2013, and my sister, she's currently is a principal down there, 22 years. 18 years me teaching in the school system. 12 out of those, well, 18, 12 out of those years I taught alternative males, which was you talking about. I'm writing. Matter of fact, I wrote the book 5 years ago. I just didn't publish it. It's not time for it to come out, but the name of the book is called He's really not a bad kid.
Oh
It's
man,
man,
I love the title already.
yes, and then Jake, it's my 18 years of teaching at-risk youth. And it's like I use a lot of asterisks, a lot of I wanted to really create a real raw experience in helping educators teach at-risk males. But I'm going to come out with it next year. I really believe it's going to be a game changer, man. But it's yeah. So
Well, I want to be first on that list,
I
man.
got you. A matter of
Yeah.
fact, what I'll do is once I finished it, but once I want to get people to about 5 people to read it and give me your insight, your thoughts. Um, but yeah, that's going to be a powerful. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I'll even add on to this, man. I feel so strongly about this. We say every child is a genius. I should clarify that a little bit. We don't, if you look up the definition of genius, what we're not saying is that they all have 180 IQ. I
Right.
mean, I wish I didn't have gray hair anymore, and I wish I was more attractive. But like,
Hey,
you do have
you
some
got to use
cards
it. You
dealt.
have to use the dye spray, man. Just spray it
Yeah,
up.
that's where I'm at, man. I'm in that stage if I'm going to go that way. Uh, but we're all different.
Yeah.
Not everyone does have 180 IQ, but the definition of genius is to possess a unique gift or a talent. And I will
Mm,
tell you that is 100% true. Every individual is so remarkable. And the more I get to know these young people and I get to work alongside them, I realize I did not understand that. And I don't think most do. I have such a deeper belief in every individual than I ever have. And when I look at these young boys, especially, and it's some girls too, in different regards, but when I look at these young boys, I cannot help but to think that not only are they not bad kids, right?
hmm
But the things that are difficult for us now, if we could help them develop that I mean, a lot of that is self-esteem in lots of ways, but if we could
Right.
help them develop a self-confidence, a sense
Right.
of self, I would argue that those who are difficult, that we deem as difficult, the things that are difficult for us uh, are their superpowers
Come on. That's true.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, you think of these. I mean, look, I have four boys,
Right.
right? And there are some things that I'm just like, I'm gonna beat this out of you, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But like one, he thinks for himself,
Mm,
and he's got a backbone, and I'm like, it
right.
bothers the heck out of me when we're trying to, when we're trying to do something as a
Right.
family or whatever. But I know that when he's 23, 25, and there's
Right.
something important for him to stand up for, he's going to be more than capable of doing that. But if you don't get the other pieces, right? If they don't have a sense of who they are and they're
That's true.
treated like garbage their whole life and they don't ever develop an ability to go out and use that in a positive way, yeah, it will
Right.
be a problem,
Right. No, you're right. And I brought that up with the experience of teaching in those schools. So, like I was saying before, with in Florida, there's a lot of educators is upset. The private schools are getting the money. We're losing funding. So, what inspires the creation? I think you talked about it before about the creation of Acton Academy model. But the thing is, for you, what problem were you trying to solve, and why did you believe education needed to change?
You know, we think of education a lot of times as what, well, I mean, at its simplest form, education has become very, I mean, in an effort to measure things that we think help us understand if success is happening, we've really narrowed down education to be a really simple set of boxes to check. I
Right.
mean, be able to regurgitate some memorized information in the 21st century is just strikingly
Yeah.
like off,
Yeah.
but more importantly, I'd even say, even if grades actually meant something in the real world and all of that were true, which I don't think is, um, it's and like I said before, there's evolution happening in the there's great people
hmm
intending to it's just there's I guess there's really two ways to approach education. One is sort of the Reformation movement. It's like great people from inside who are trying to improve the existing model. And then there's the disruptive movement. This is like not trying to improve the existing model, but just stepping outside of the model and building something brand new designed for, I guess, for us for the 21st century. And I mean, there's I think both are important. We're just as a parent and an entrepreneur, I wasn't very helpful reforming
Right.
the existing model. I'm far more helpful maybe on the disruptive side, which I think we all eventually learn from. But if our children get good grades, but they don't have a sense of who they are and where they're going, or if they, or if they're over compliant in a world that needs people to stand up for what's right, or if who they are as a person is not more important than what they can demonstrate on a test or a
Mm,
quiz or whatever, I just think we've missed the point. And for me, the purpose of education is to prepare my children for lives of meaning. And that means like to me, I guess the way I think about it is if you have a child who's 18 leaving home and you wiped away all of their academic knowledge, but they were able to set and reach goals, push through when things are hard. Uh, you said, what did you call them? Giants. We
right.
say in studios, we say monsters.
Mm.
Um, we use the narrative of the hero's journey, which
And
is this
it
idea.
sounds like they're cousins.
Yeah, I think they might just be the same, just renamed, as
Right.
far as I can tell. But there are three that we see very, I guess maybe they're human nature, but we
Yeah.
are like our young people are facing every day, which is resistance, resistance to doing those hard. It's those things are important that you just don't want to do, but
Mhm,
they're important. So overcoming that distraction, exchanging those long-term goals for short-term thrills,
mhm,
and then victimhood, feeling like you are not in charge of your own destiny.
mhm,
And for us, like if you have a young person who can overcome resistance, distraction, and doesn't feel like they're a victim of their circumstances, they can set and reach goals, push through when things are hard. They enjoy learning. They're independent. They have understanding of what their own unique gifts are, how they can uniquely contribute to the world. They've explored the real world through
mhm.
apprenticeships and through all of these different things. I'm just not so sure that they can't figure out the academic
Right.
part. But if you have all the academic knowledge in the world and you don't have the other things,
That's true.
that's possibly a lifetime of learning. So for us, I think our aim just is slightly different. And for that reason, building something new struck us as more feasible and
Hmm.
more aligned for what we wanted to accomplish for our children. I mean, ultimately, Acton Academy is just a group of uh, ordinary parents on an
Right.
extraordinary adventure that maybe some of us are unqualified for, but we believe in enough to something a little more aimed towards who our children become. And so yeah, that's why
Awesome.
we have built Acton.
That's awesome. How do you measure student success if you're not relying primarily on grades and standardized tests?
So practically, I mean, uh, fundamentally, we would want young people to develop their own sense
Hmm.
this is an important question for life, right? Like, how do I want to measure the success of my own life? And if we don't hone that, like, if we can't kind of look towards a star on the horizon that kind of sets us and orients us in a direction, we're kind of aimless, right?
Right.
So if I don't, if success for me is making hundreds of millions of dollars and that's all I'm aiming at, and it costs me a family and friends and maybe even meaningful, important work to me, I, I'm not so sure that one would argue that that's the right direction. And so for us, I think it's first about helping young people to be able to answer this question for themselves.
Hmm.
Now, I guess as you think about having 4-year-olds up to 18-year-olds in
Right.
a school campus, you need something more than that. A little too holistic. But there are three ways that at Acton we measure progress. And I'll also mention I think this is a very unimportant statistic, but I think it validates some important components of the model. But our learners tend to, there's no forced learning at Acton. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's a place of learning to become an individual, responsible, curious, capable, independent learner. And, but we don't force learning. And yet, even with no forced learning, young people progress typically 2 to 3 grade levels per year until they maximize standardized tests. And so progress in learning happens actually, and significant. I would say you kind of go through a, well, a little slower at first, a lot
Right.
faster later.
Mm,
Maybe a way of thinking about it. As you develop good habits, learning comes faster. But there are three ways that we measure learning, and the first is mastery. So in our environment, you don't move forward. It's self-paced, but you just don't move forward until you actually learn something, because it doesn't
right.
help much to not have learned it.
Hmm.
And so everyone learns at their own pace towards mastery. Um, and so we measure mastery. And then the second is effort. So we measure the effort that you put in. You can you can improve the experience that you have at Acton Academy as you put in effort in your learning. And you can actually be exited from an Acton Academy if you aren't putting effort into your learning. So effort's a big,
Right.
it's a place where we're here to learn, and you have lots of freedom and autonomy, but you also have a lot of responsibility towards putting in effort towards your learning. And then the third is leadership and character. So, really tough to measure. It's probably more feedback than measurement, but our learners share honest, 360 review type feedback. There are lots of self reflection, journaling. I mean, lots of ways that you learn to develop a sense of self and character and leadership. Um, I'll add, though, it's been really interesting because, I mean, leadership, for whatever reasons, I could probably give you some ingredients, but the combination of trust and responsibility and belief
Right.
tends to like really blossom strong leaders. We say at Acton, the best person to do anything is the youngest capable person.
Mm,
And it's interesting because this will give some insight into our model. But we have learned that young people are so good at leadership, even as young as 4 and 5 years old. I mean, you walked in, you'll see a group of 4 to 7 year olds leading a discussion for 20 minutes in a way that will, I mean, just it will blow
right.
your mind.
Right.
And you'll see lots of messy stuff too. I want to be clear.
Right.
Not like
The
it's
kids.
a
Yeah.
it's a place of learning. But man, there are some amazing moments. And as a result, our adults, we've realized the role of the adult has actually become, we have guides, not teachers, because we're kind of trying to get out of their way. And we have watched learning progress so much faster. And as they've developed leadership, we have just become actually unimportant in our especially in our upper studios, like middle school and high school. Like, the adult plays like a really, I mean, a mentor role, and
Right.
lots of encouragement, giving them the best tools in the world for learning, but then really getting out of the way and letting young people lead. And I'll tell you what, it has been really interesting. We think a well-run Acton Academy is actually best run by young leaders, not by adults.
Mm,
And so far, that has proven very true. To have older learners be leaders and mentors has been a really interesting recipe. And we can now run an Acton campus of 150 learners with something like 2 to 3 adults. We think eventually
wow.
one, because young people have stepped up and led in such capable
Right.
ways.
Right.
So,
Is there a way from they're leaving from high school? Is there a way from transitioning to college, those students that want to go
sure.
to college, or how will a college see their scores, or how is that is evaluated?
I mean, the best way to think about it, I think, is just the recognition that college is a game,
Hmm.
and you're kind of have to play the game, and
Hmm.
that's okay. We're happy to play the game the
Right.
way that the college wants to play the game, and our goal is not to impede someone's ability to grow. I mean, our goal is for them to find a calling, right? So you can see kind of
Gotcha.
behind me, Dr. Buchanan, it says next great adventure. The
Mm,
goal of Launchpad, our high school, is
gotcha.
to embark on a next great adventure. And some do go to college and some don't. We're
Gotcha.
not in the
Yeah.
we're
Right.
not in the fight for which is the
Right.
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 We just want them to make a wise decision for what's next. And we can translate all of our learning to a traditional transcript that is well received by a college admissions officer. We can also convert it into a resume that can get
Yeah.
a pretty remarkable job out of high school. And some of our learners don't even do either. They go
Right.
and start building something on their
Right.
own. So
That's awesome.
something like
That's
that
good
is
stuff, man.
how we do
And
it.
that's important, man, because I know I put in my notes here. One of the things with three professions, I always said this years ago, with professions: a doctor, educator, and a pastor. Those three professions, it really fancies my mind how people in those professions can be so prejudiced. How can
Mm,
a person in these three professions, if like there's some things that we like certain foods, we like certain environments, we like certain um, places, right? Like teams. We all have a preference, but in those three professions, as a pastor, how can you be prejudiced and not like people? As an educator, how can you be prejudiced and not like people from all walks of life? As a doctor, like this is you should have a profession, a passion to really help people in their health. But no, I don't. So that really found even when I was in the school system, that just to the core that bothered me, right? And so in that, the question I want to ask, how do you build a community with students with different backgrounds, cultures, and learning styles?
Oh man, that's such a good question. And I would argue, I'll argue to the death that the diversity is where the magic is.
Amen.
And here's what people I think don't quite look. So our model, so one of the core tenets of Acton is that we're Socratic, which means that our guides don't answer questions
Mm,
ever. And learners are challenged to think for themselves. But it also means that an adult guide is not welcome at any point to utter declarative statement. In other words,
mm,
our opinion doesn't matter.
mm,
And I can and so every day starts with a Socratic discussion where you stand in the shoes of somebody who has to make a difficult decision, similar to what I've shared earlier. And if you create a space where young people can say what they believe to be true
mm-hmm.
and be able, and for someone else to be able to agree or disagree in an open, honest, and healthy way, what you start to recognize is that even two of the most similar people in the world, people who are the same,
Right.
are very different.
Different. That's
You
true.
will make different decisions in real circumstances, no
Right.
matter what. And the diversity in thought is what brings the ability to think more clearly.
Right.
We want you to leave a discussion, or we want you to leave a discussion at Acton either with a stronger belief in what you believe,
Mm-hmm.
or seeing a blind spot that you didn't really recognize. And the beauty of a Socratic discussion is someone could leave and be like, I would never do A. I would
Right.
never do option A that, we talked about today. And someone might leave and be like, I would never do option B. And both are okay in an Acton Academy. And so I just think you have to. I think it starts at you. I mean, just it's a respect of other people. I'll add one other maybe tip I think that we've learned over the years for anybody in any organization or in any walk of life. If you ask questions that put people in the shoes of real people who have to make real decisions, right? You could take the hottest topics of the day, and if you stand in someone's shoes who has to make a difficult decision, um,
That's true.
I mean, I'll give a maybe a really bad, maybe a really touchy example here, but we could talk about abortion, and if you say is abortion good or bad, that's going to really launch into a discussion that no
Correct.
one wants to have.
Correct.
That's going to be divisive.
Correct.
But if you say, you are James so and so, son of a pastor, on his way to XYZ
Right.
stage of life, and whose girlfriend has just conceived of a child, I mean, you
Yeah.
can paint a scenario where you go, man, even where I disagree. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
even where you and I'm sure share similar thoughts on this topic, but even where I might disagree fundamentally, I can at least have the empathy to
Yes.
understand why someone would make a decision that I do not agree with.
Correct.
And that actually breeds connection, not discord.
Right.
And instead, in the world, we're talking about all this high level. And instead, if you just said, well, gosh, what would you do if you were this person? It's like, man, look, I still would lean, excuse me, I'd still lean and do,
Right.
I would still do XYZ.
Right.
But man, I have a lot of respect for the difficulty of the decision.
Amen.
And so that's a long, I mean,
No, no, that's
it's
good.
a
That's good.
robot,
And
but I just think the diversity matters. You
yeah.
have to have a diversity of thought, no matter if you're technically
Right.
considered similar or not. We're all
Correct.
way more different than you think.
No, I agree, man. And one of the things to this day, I was a kid, Jake, born and raised in Miami. I don't know if you're familiar with Miami. There's city, was a small city in Miami called Opelika. Was
Mhm.
majority blacks and Spanish, and there was one lady 3 houses down from me. Her name was Miss Green. She had, I think she had about 12 dogs, 12 little dogs, 12, 13. And I don't know if she was from I don't know, man, she even may have been from the South, but she was such a teacher. And she will walk her dogs every day. And I was a kid, man. You have all these kids in the community. She will walk her dogs, and she will always will walk with Miss Green. But there was a church across the street that had this oak tree, and I'm not making this up, man. It had to be at least 15 to 20 kids every day. I would say Monday probably through Friday, every day. We're across the street around this oak tree with her dogs, but there's an oak tree and there's a rock, and she would teach us how to spell Mississippi. She would teach us how she would go through. She was just a teacher, and she wasn't a certified teacher. She didn't go through a school to become an educator. She just she just had a heart for kids. She was always
Gift.
that still rings. And so when we're talking about, like I said, diversity and thinking, here you have somebody, there's no cameras around. There's no, at that time, definitely wasn't social media, but she just loved educating kids. And I can still hear the the dog collars of the chain, the dogs coming, Miss Green is coming, and the kids following her. And so that sticks to me with me to this day. One of my favorite teachers in the elementary school, Miss Aronsky. I think, I don't know, she's on social media now, and she messaged me, and she's had to be like in close to her 80s, and I still can smell her perfume over my shoulder, teaching me how to read. And man, she was one of my favorite teachers. But I say all that to say, man, is that when we have a calling, a profession, like you said before, you didn't go to school for this in education field, but you have a passion for this, you have a calling for this. You know, you don't leave what you were making, type of money you was making, to do this with five kids, like you're looking for something to do, right? You do that because there's something deeper. Um, Two more questions I have for you. If you could change one thing about education in America today, what would it be?
Pretty easy. That knows no adult that is ever near children. Let me rephrase this. That every adult who works with children deeply believes that each is a genius who deserves to find a calling that will change the world. Uh, if you just do not deserve to be around children if you do not deeply believe that each has something unique to contribute to the world.
That's good. That's good. Where can parents learn more about Acton Academy and determine if it's a good fit for their family?
We're easy to find. I mean, we're like I say, God, we have 300 campuses now in 30 countries, which, by the way, is such a representation of the diversity. Not to circle
Right.
back, but gosh, we have campuses all across the world, and it works because we believe that young people are capable. But we're find you search Acton Academy. There's a great location finder on our website that's useful, and also, it's an invite. I mean, there's only going to be a small handful of parents who are listening that are entrepreneurial and kind of have this will speak to something deeper. And there are a few that we would invite to consider if they are willing and ready to take on the responsibility of launching an Acton in their community too. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, fathers, four takeaways I want to say. Every child learns differently. Two, character matters more than the report cards. Three, failure can be a great teacher. And number four, fathers are their child's first teacher. Jake, anything you want to say or anything insight you want to give, man? I first want to continue to say I thank you for all that you and your team are doing. I have two kids. One daughter went off to college. We had to take her about a month ago. And I have a
ooh,
son
that's
that's
gotta be
going, yeah, he's going to sixth grade. So you have five, well, four. And I think you may have one more to make a basketball team, right?
I think we're
I
wise
got
to
you.
not, but yeah,
Yes,
you're
sir.
right.
So I thank you. Anything you wanted to let the audience know, or anything you want to let us know for as we're transitioning?
No, I liked your summary. The one thing I would say is, uh, don't let the societal norms dictate what you believe about your child.
That's
I
good.
can guarantee, like, there's a lot of parents out there that are just so uh, they're trying not to believe the stories that they are hearing
Mm,
about their children or whatever. And I wish every parent could just relax a little bit and trust that their children are going to be okay if they're intentionally, believing and caring about their children. So
no, thank you, sir. In
Appreciate you,
closing,
man.
no, I thank
This
you.
was
I thank
a
you.
awesome. I would loved hearing your story, and you
Yeah.
just are such a. I mean, you obviously you get very naturally exactly what we're trying to build, and just an honor to be on your podcast.
No, thank you. And it won't be the last time, man. I I take one thing about it, man. It's like you said before, doing so many things. Um, yeah, I thank God. That's man, that's a whole nother message because in my mind, I just thought, Jake, that I was just a football player. Like I put all my eggs in one basket and I was pretty decent, and that's all I got. This is my dream, the golden ticket, right? I got to go to each candy store to find the golden ticket, and that's all I want. And now looking back, let me say this before we transition off. In elementary, my mom, let's go back. Well, let me try to give you a short version. I have an oldest brother. He was dealt with learning disability, emotional disability. He was the first child, and he was put in a not even slow learning class, but class of whatever he was dealing with, whatever thought process. And as time went on, I was the next child. My mom, she was an educator, and she always said at that time, years later, that was the worst decision she ever made, putting my oldest brother in that environment, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's amazing. I always reflect on this, but I never brought this up. Um, but I was the next child, and when elementary school, they had a payback down in Miami. They call art program, or you can in music, art, dance.
Mm.
So there was an art program that started in the same elementary school, but in the school, it's like that was a whole different world. That was on a whole different side of the school. And my mom literally went into the office and she said, how can I register my son in this art program? Now, I wasn't supposed to be in there, but she took the initiative and say, how can my son be in this art program? How can my son sign up? And as I all over time got in there, we did art, we drew. Down in Miami, they had something called South Miami where you get the chance to take photos. There's another place called Vizcaya. So all these museums, and the key word I want to bring up, I was now exposed to other environments. I was around other kids and drawing and art and painting. And this is at the age of fourth grade. So
Mm.
all this is spoke, and then that's elementary. Now I got to go to middle school, and the middle school was a program I had to get busted into because of art. Now I'm different levels of artists and drawing and pictures and painting and still life paintings and museums, and you're meeting different cultures. All remember that's middle school. Then from middle school, same thing in high school. So the high school I went to, I had to get busted into an art program, and we had to carry portfolios, advanced placement art, AP art. So portfolios had to carry around in order. And remember, AP art was like taking college art classes, right? But I had to stop doing it my 12th grade year because I was doing football and that. So I brought that up for a reason, all because of my mom, one decision back in elementary exposing me. I believe the artistic style that God's blessed me with is writing, to be able to write books, to be able to have a conversation with you, and God can give me 30 ideas in one minute.
Yeah.
So that one seed, that one act opened up a whole different can of worms of purpose. So God can bless me to write books, bless me to think of ideas, bless me to think of just all. So I said all that to say this, man, is that many times I think I don't get too religious or spiritual, but in the Bible, it says when God shows us our purpose, when we give our life to Christ, He shows us our purpose. That one seed, that's just a seed. But the more we get closer to Him, He starts to show us more seeds and skill sets that we have in our hand. That we're more than just an author. We're more than just the president over Acton Academy. That we're more than just a father and a husband and waiting till the sun come down and go. No, that we have other things that's in our hands, skill sets. So, and I think that's what you guys are doing. Continue to do that because forget kids. There's a lot of adults don't even know their skill set. A lot of adults don't know their purpose, don't know their creativity, beyond the four walls of what we call church, right? That there's entrepreneurship. So I can go on down the line. So I personally want to thank you for all that you guys are doing.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah, there's we're all a work in progress,
Oh yeah.
and
Ask my
I
wife, she'll
think
tell you.
I think and I'll share one last thing too is, uh, you sharing that makes me realize. I think about all the work you've done to sort of transform yourself over
Right.
the years, right? Face those monsters, giants, and kind of become who you are today. I mean, all we want to do is give young people the opportunity to do that sooner because it's just a
Mm,
lot harder when you're older.
that's
The
good,
stakes are
man.
higher, right?
That's
And
good.
and at the end of the day, though, the credit really does go to them. We Acton is great. We offer great challenges and tools and resources, but the hard work is the work of individual transformation. And what's so amazing is watching these young people do that work. And that probably is the most inspiring thing is just to watch what they're capable of, what they care about. We often just don't give them enough credit, but
Mm,
they are thinking about these important things at an early age. And all we want to do is give them the chance to work through those are muscles to build
that's true.
and things to experience, and they will and they can, and that seems to set them up for a bit of a better trajectory if they can be a little bit ahead of the curve and recognize that that is within their reach. And so thank you, man, for being a cool example I mean,
You're
gosh,
welcome.
you're doing so much awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, I can't wait to see what else you bring forward. And hopefully I get to be a little closer to it now
Yes,
than I
sir.
was before. So
I appreciate you, man. Well, in closing, education isn't just about preparing children for college, it's about preparing them for life. Whether your child attends public school, private school, homeschool, an innovative school like Acton Academy, your presence as a father will always be the greatest influence of their future. Thank our guests. I want to thank Jake Thompson for sharing his vision and passion for developing young leaders. If this episode encouraged you, share it with another father who navigating educational choices for their family. Remember, fathers don't just raise children, they build legacies. Until next time, keep leading, keep loving, and keep building the next generation. I'm your host, Emerson Morris, and this is Fathers University.